IWIL started with friendships
Yeah.
and to help women to get trained in order to win public office.
Yeah.
That's what motivated us to get together and form IWIL.
I always like to think of how we started as being like a cottage industry, or what you said, bring your own donuts kind of thing.
Alice Phillips had become a board member of a group of Republican women, and what they did was train a dozen women every year to run for political office. And she said, Loretta, this is absolutely a program you must do. I spoke with Dick about it, and finally he gave me the order to just do it. And so that's when you pull together your trusted friends, like these two and a few others, and start talking about how to go about forming a democratic organization to entice women to run for office, to train them to compete successfully, and to develop networks and to help the Democratic Party. Essentially, there were 3 or 4 of us who worked all the time in the beginning on how to pull this program together. So that's how we got started. Those were our roots. So in 2000, the Democratic National Convention, Barbara Brown, who was a part of the core group who organized IWIL, also ran the convention for the Illinois delegation. And as she had for many years, she's recommended that we introduce it there. We really need the Democrats to help us, the elected women, to serve as our first board.
We were so pleased that probably between 30 and 40 women stayed after the breakfast to talk about how we could do this all together.
And we got an overwhelming reaction, of positive reaction from women throughout the state.
We had, Don Clark Netch, who was a state senator then, and then we had Lisa Madigan, who was a senator.
So was Jen Schakowsky.
Yeah, we had Jen Schakowsky, and they all came forward and they said, we'll help, what can we do? And we gathered in Chicago, and at Sheraton was our first board meeting. And then the committees were formed. We had to have a fundraising committee that was major.
Would not have gotten started had Dick not come forward and gave us $25,000.
Yeah.
And then Margaret Blackshear, who was the first woman president of the AFL-CIO, stepped forward and contacted all of her labor leaders.
And Ed Smith was just such a strong supporter down in Southern Illinois.
And such a strong supporter of women.
Yeah, the trial lawyers were, quite a good group because they were all over the state.
Because we offered it free, because we raised the money to cover the expenses that we did have, even though the only expenses were hotels, catering and stuff.
That's an important point, because we wanted to make certain nobody was disqualified for the inability to pay. We wanted to put a lot of thought into what are the parameters, what are our priorities, what are our values. And it was really important that we have women who we had diversity in every way. We wanted to equip them with the skills that they needed, whether that be public speaking, which many of them were not familiar with, the ability to raise money.
Started talking about what we would want to teach, what we want them to learn, and who we had among our recruits that could cover that subject. We had like ethics, and then of course labor.
Barb Brown had taught at the university. She'd been a candidate and a major organizer in Southern Illinois for everybody, but particularly women.
She's the one that really outlined our curriculum, all the issues that we should cover. Because that first program, you can tell how much we relied on our volunteers. We had Senator Durbin, who talked, and Jan Schakowsky, and Dorothy Brown, David Wilhelm. And then Axelrod spoke about developing a message, and every single one of those said, yeah, I'll do it. That was all with no payment.
Well, my favorite memories are serving on the delegate selection committee.
They had to be pro-choice.
Yes, you have some connection with the Democratic Party.
We had, I know one of the delegate selection, they were tough questions, but Billy Page always asked, what breed of dog? Do you remember? And I used to videotape all the sessions, and I would videotape their presentations, and Paul Simon, and these I thought were historic times, and here I'm sitting here taping these sessions. And we were at Paul Simon's house in Wakanda, and Lisa was starting to talk, and she said, I'm going to be very candid with you. And then she looked at me, she said, Bonnie, turn off the camera. That's because she wanted to be very candid, and she often was very candid.
But it's generous when somebody wants to give you a real piece of
Yes.
genuine, strong advice. So many of our women have said, particularly those who've run on and been successful, I would have never done it had it not been for IWIL.
Now we've trained over 260
Isn't that something?
women.
It gives us such a sense of pride when you look at the fact that we've elected people. I mean, some really strong mayors. The fact that we've got a number of county chairs downstate. That would have never happened before. We've got women in Congress, our lieutenant governor, women in the Senate, women in the House.
Our IWIL women have been involved in over 600 elections.
It's important now more than ever because of what is happening with our political system and with the erosion, just a daily erosion of our rights.
The fight isn't over. We have to continue to work, train, and elect women leaders in Illinois.